If you want to create a step-by-step plan on how you can become a millionaire, there are only 3 things that you have to master. People love to overcomplicate this, but there are only 3 things that you have to master. Number 1 is you have to understand and master the outflow of your cash. Number 2 is you have to master and control the inflow of cash. And number 3 is you have to understand how to grow your cash. That's it. If you can understand these 3 things, you will be able to build a true wealth system that will allow you to control how much wealth you can build. It will allow you to become a millionaire, but you have to actually understand these 3 things, because while most people think they understand how to manage the inflow of cash and the outflow of cash and how to grow their cash, most people really don't have a clue, which is why the majority of Americans are broke. The majority of Americans have 0 to no savings. The majority of Americans have 0 to no investments. And the majority of Americans have no idea of how to actually build wealth. And if you stick with me through this video, you are not only going to understand how to do these 3 things, but you're going to know exactly what you need to do. That way you can build a plan to become wealthy, that we can hit your financial goals. So let me start with number 1, which is mastering the outflow of cash. Most people are broke because they spend too much money, period. You can hate the government, you can hate your boss, you can hate corporations, you can hate banks, you can hate everything in the whole wide world. But the reason why most Americans are broke today is because they spend more money than what they bring in, or they spend all the money that they bring in. And unfortunately, our entire system thrives off of you spending your money. Now you might say, Jaspreet, what do you mean? Well, when you see corporations going out and hiring the best marketers and creating the best advertising campaigns, what are they intended to do? They're intended to get you to open up your wallet and spend your money at somebody's business. And if you don't have the money to purchase a product, then what? Well, that's where banks come in. Banks are in the business of getting you to borrow money, many times to buy things that you cannot afford. Now, can you use banks to make money? Sure, you can borrow money to buy things that make you money, but most people statistically are not doing that. Most people are going into debt to buy things that lose that money, which means you are going out and making somebody else richer by spending all of your money, right? Because the more money you spend, the more money somebody else makes. That's how our economic system works. Most people don't want to understand that, but that is how our economic system works. But when you go out and spend debt to buy things, now not only are you spending all of your money to make somebody else rich, but you are going into debt using the bank's money to make somebody else rich. And now you're using your future income to pay off yesterday's expenses. This is the outflow of cash that you have to master. And this is why you have to master this first before you start worrying about how do you earn more money. Because if you just start working to earn more money without understanding how to control your spending, you will never, ever become wealthy. And a lot of people get this twisted. They think, oh man, I'm struggling with money. I just wish I made an extra $1,000 a month. I'd be able to make my car payment better. I'd be able to have some money to save. I'd be able to have some money to invest. All I need is an extra $1,000 a month. And what ends up happening statistically to the majority of people who end up getting the extra $1,000 a month is their expenses, rise by $1,000 a month or even $1,100 a month. Why? Because when you start making more money, we feel like we need to go out and spend more money. When people start making a bigger income, what do? You got to go out and get a nicer car. You got to go on a nice vacation. And banks will see that you're making more money and they will extend you a bigger line of credit. They will extend you more loans. It's easier for you to qualify for more debt. And that's why when most people earn more money, they end up in a bigger financial hole. That's why before you focus on just earning more money, you have to understand how to control the outflow of cash, because until you can control the outflow of cash, you will never, ever, ever be able to become wealthy. So what does it mean to be able to control the outflow of cash? Well, number 1, that means no more financing anything that does not pay you, period. The only exemption to this is going to be your home. That means no more financing your phones, no more financing your cars, no more financing your electronics or your sofas and your vacations. It has become so easy for us to go into debt to buy things, because now the concept of being able to buy something is being confused with being able to afford something. When most people think that they can afford something, they think, yeah, I can afford the $50 monthly payment, so I can afford to buy this item. No, you can buy the item, but you cannot afford it. If you really want to be able to afford it, the first step is you cannot finance that thing. If it's not putting money in your pocket, do not go out and finance it. That vacation, that car, those clothes, you should not be financing those things, period. Number two, if you really want to be able to afford it, you can't spend all of your money to buy it. If you have $1,000 in your bank and you want to go out and buy a $1,000 phone, can you buy it? Sure. And you can buy it without going into debt. Great. But can you afford it? No. One thing that I like to follow is a rule of 5, which says if you cannot buy 5 of them, you cannot afford one of them. What does that mean? You want to buy that $1,000 phone? You should have $5,000 sitting in your bank account. That way you can actually afford to buy that phone. Now, what does that mean? You got to make some sacrifices. And that's why this is so hard, because most people don't want to make these sacrifices. And this is where the other group of people will say, oh, I'll just work to earn more money that we can buy what you want. Yes, you should, but we're not there yet. You have to be able to control the outflow of cash before you worry so much about the inflow of cash, because the inflow of cash without managing the outflow of cash leads to bigger financial problems. So you got to understand what you can afford. That means you got to be able to live below your means. And I know this is not hard. And I know this is going to make a lot of you not like me. But that's okay. I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to help you be better with your money. If you want to become wealthy, and I mean sustainably wealthy, and I mean that type of wealth where now you can buy whatever the heck you want. You can drive whatever car you want. You can go wherever you want on vacation. You can go buy whatever the handbag it is that you want. You don't have to worry about the price. You have to start by controlling the outflow of cash. Think of it like a bucket with a hole in it. If you just try to put more water into the bucket, well, eventually all that water is going to seep out. You have to control the outflow. You have to seal the bucket before you start focusing on how can you fill the bucket even more. You got to understand now, what can you sacrifice? And that might mean you got to downsize your car. This one's hard. You might have to go from the BMW or the Mercedes-Benz to your Toyota or a Honda. That's not easy, but it'll save you a lot of money. You might have to say no to the vacation. You might have to say no to the bachelor party. You might have to say no to a lot of things. That way you can keep that money in your pocket. Because one of the fastest ways to have more money is just to not let go of your money. So you got to start making some of those financial sacrifices. Once you understand that, now you have to control the inflow of cash, meaning how can you earn more money? So you sealed that bucket. Your bank account no longer has the holes in it. So when money hits your bank account, it stays there. It doesn't leave. And this is going to be the first kind of aha moment when you start seeing money start to grow in your bank account. The first time you see that $100, $1,000, $10,000, $100,000, whatever it might be for you, that creates that first aha. Oh my God, money's not leaving my account. Now the question is, how can you grow that bank account from 10 to 100 to 1,000 to 100,000 to 1,000,000 as fast as possible? And once you seal the holes, the way that you can grow it faster is by increasing how much money comes in to the bank account. So how do you do that? Well, you can start through your job. That might mean working harder at your job, working overtime, getting a second job, maybe getting a career change, maybe getting a certificate, maybe doing something in your career that way you can create more income, more value at what it is that you're doing. But if you can't find the fulfillment and the income at your job, then the next place where you can do that is trying to create your own income. This is what worked for me. I can't tell you what to do, but I'll tell you what worked for me. Everything that I talk about is just from my own experience. I have always worked to create my own income because you have no limit to how much you can earn. Now, is it risky? Absolutely. Will it work? I don't know. But at least you can try. And if you can try to create your own income, and if you have that mindset to want to create your own income, you will be able to start doing it, but you got to start putting in the work. Now, how do you create your own income? At the end of the day, every business, every source of revenue comes down to two things. You got to have a way to make money, a product, and you got to have customers, people to purchase your product. Now, the question is, what can you create and who do you sell this thing to? And there's a whole lot of ways to do this. You can go out and find a problem. Maybe you realize that people in your area really struggle with mowing their lawns. You can be the person that mows their lawns. Maybe you realize that you are really good with numbers. You are a really good bookkeeper. Well, you can find local businesses in your area and help to organize their finances. Maybe you're really good at graphic design or visual design, or maybe you're really good at video editing. Find local influencers in your area and offer to do their video editing for free. Why for free? Because you got to get your foot in the door. Every influencer in the world is getting pitched, hey, let me do your video editing for you. Hey, let me do your thumbnails for you. Hey, let me do your graphics for you. Hey, let me write a blog post for you. And if you keep saying, hey, let me do this for you, I want $50 or $100 or $1,000 to do this, well, you're just like everybody else. But if you can offer to do it for free, especially to somebody who's starting off, because that free has value to somebody in the early stages of the business, as somebody starts to grow, offering something for free, really doesn't have the same appeal, because when somebody gets bigger and they have a bigger audience, they have a bigger customer base, they want to pay for the best. They don't really want the free and cheap. But understand that now, who are you going after? And how can you create value? You got to get your foot in the door. How can you start creating more income? Or my favorite option is you can also work to create your own brand. And the reason why this one is so powerful is because if you can work to create your own brand, this is not easy, but if you can work to create your own brand, you are building an asset, which is your own brand. And let me show you why this matters, because let's assume now that you work to build your own personal presence on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or podcast or whatever it might be. If you can build your own brand, and you want to launch, I don't know, a mug line. You're like, you know what? I love drinking tea and coffee. I'm going to start creating these new mugs. So now you can use your revenue, ideally, if you have some advertising revenue, to fund this new mug product that you have. So you don't have to go into debt. You don't have to sell equity. You don't have to give up some of your business. You can use some of your advertising revenue to build this new mug product. And then who do you launch it to? Well, you have your audience. You can do your beta test directly to your own audience. You get your initial customers without having to buy those customers, because those initial customers are the most difficult to get. And then you can also start getting feedback. Maybe you realize you have an amazing product and now you can start working to scale it. Or maybe you realize you don't really like the mug business. You're not very good at the mug business. And now you shut it down. Now, typically what would happen in this situation is you feel like you failed, because you have to shut down the business. Now, of course, no failure is a failure if you keep trying, but I want you to understand this for a second. You shut down that business, what would happen if you didn't have an audience? If you didn't have a personal brand? Now you got to figure out what's next. Maybe then you start a t-shirt line. Now you got to start all over from scratch. How do you create the product? How do you initially sell the product? And you got to build it all over again. But if you have an audience, now you start this mug business, you realize it doesn't work, you shut it down, and now you start a t-shirt brand. Now what? You can use that same advertising revenue to start funding and starting this t-shirt brand, and then you can start selling it again to your own audience. Because while that business might have failed, you still have that core asset, which is your audience, your personal brand. See, your personal brand is a very valuable tool, and I'm really starting to see that now more and more, because it gives you the ability to create things, test things, get beta testers, launch a product, and still have that core audience, that core asset. And so that has the most potential. Now, is it easy to build a personal brand? No, absolutely not. But is it possible? 100%. And the key for you building a personal brand is you got to be authentic to you. You got to be genuine, because there's a million copies out there, but there's only one you. So if you can build a personal brand out of whatever it is that your interest is, because you are your own interest, you are your own thing, you are your own unique concept that nobody else has, well, if you can start building an audience of 1,000, 10,000, or 100,000, now you have a serious base that you can start launching products to. And now if it fails, you can just go on to the next one, and you don't have that real failure like, oh my God, I dumped my life savings into this and I worked so hard to get these customers. Now if I start something else, you got to start all over again. You just market your new product to that same audience. For example, if Kim Kardashian wanted to start selling toilet paper tomorrow, how would she do it? She could just post it on her own Instagram page, and you bet that that would turn into $1 million toilet paper company, because, well, she has a personal brand, and so now she can sell her makeup and she can sell toilet paper. But it all starts with having that personal brand, which is why that personal brand is so valuable. Over the next decade, that's going to become a real powerful niche, the people that understand how to harness the power of a personal brand. And the third thing you have to understand then is, once you understand the cash outflow and you understand how to master the cash inflow, is you got to master how to actually grow your cash. Now, I do want to let you know that my team at Briefs Media put together a free ebook titled How to Build Wealth as an Investor that you can read, that walks you through things like how do you manage your savings, how do you start investing your money, how do you generate cash flow, how do you grow the value of your investments, to how do you spend your money smartly, how do you earn more money, and how do you protect your assets. So if you want to get this ebook, it's completely free. I got the link for you down in the description below, where you can go to briefs.co/ebook. That way we can get a copy of this ebook for free and start reading it. When it comes to growing your cash, this is where the real wealth is built, because a lot of people assume now that your wealth is built through number 2, through earning more money. That if I could make $100,000 a year, I'll be rich. Or if I made $1 million a year, I'd be rich. Or if I made $10 million a year, I'd be on top of the world. But what you'll see is that people can make millions of dollars a year and still be broke. Because if you make $10 million and you spend $11 million, which is what a lot of people actually do, the people that make a lot of money, you'll see a lot of people end up broke because of this very reason. If you don't know how to control your inflow and your outflow, you will stay broke. But the real wealth now is how do you grow your cash? And the reason why is because even if you made $10 million and you didn't spend all of it, well, as soon as you stop working, that money stops coming in. And now all you have is whatever cash you didn't spend to fund the rest of your life. And sure, maybe if you're old and you don't have that much time left, you don't have any expenses, then you can fund that. But how can you now create a legacy? How can you create generational income that goes beyond you? And the way that you do that is by understanding number 3, which is how to grow your cash. And this is whether you are an employee or an employer. The concept stays the same, because now what you need to do is you got to take the money that you don't spend and you got to use this money to create a new income. And when I say create a new income, I'm not meaning you have to go and create another job for yourself. What I mean is you want to own a passive stream of new cash flow. And now, how do you do this? You can go out and invest your money into other assets, things like stocks, things like real estate, maybe even other businesses. Those are the 3 biggest wealth builders that we have seen over the last century. These have been time tested over the last century to produce more wealth than anything else: stocks, real estate, and businesses. So now, if you take the money that you're not spending and you take the money that you're working to earn more of and you use this not to go out and buy nice things, but you use it to go out and buy nice assets, whether it's stocks, maybe it's dividend paying stocks, because now dividend paying stocks are paying you with cash flow. Maybe you go out and buy rental properties. Maybe you go out and invest in other businesses. Now what you're doing is you're buying equity in these other assets that will pay you whether or not you work. And that is the true key to becoming wealthy. See, if you're working in a company, if you're an employee in a company, you're working to build up the value of this asset, which is the company that you're working in. And maybe or maybe not, you may or may not own a piece of that company. If you don't own a piece of the company, then you need to own a piece of somebody else's company. You got to go out and buy equity in a different company. You can do that in the stock market. You can do that outside of the stock market, or you can do that by going out and investing in rental properties. If you started the company, well, now you own the asset and you're growing the value of that asset. But you want to make sure that eventually you can step away from that asset, that you could fire yourself and hire a new CEO to run that company. And that's where the true wealth is. And what that means now is you got to take that money and you need to put it to work. And that means you can create a system where every week, every 2 weeks, maybe every month, money is going to leave your checking account and it's going to be automatically invested to buy these assets. Or if you want to be more involved, you can control when you go out and invest this money. I personally do both. I can't recommend what I do to anybody, but what I do is every Wednesday, cash leaves my checking account and it's automatically invested into my portfolio of ETFs in the stock market, meaning cash is automatically invested into the stock market every Wednesday. This happens whether the market's up, whether the market's down, whether we're in a recession, whether we're in an economic boom. It does not matter what's going on in the economy. I'm always working to go out and buy more shares of the stock market because the stock market gives me a piece of the economy. But then in addition to that, I also have money that I'm working to actively invest. What does that mean? I'm always actively looking for good companies to invest in on the stock market, companies that I believe are undervalued. I'm always looking for real estate rental properties that I believe are good deals, that I believe are going to make positive cash flow. I'm always looking for startup investments. I'm always looking for opportunities where I can go and put my money to work. Now, this is where you got to figure out what type of investor do you want to be, because a lot of people try to sell this system of you have to invest in real estate to become wealthy. Well, there's a lot of wealthy people out there that have never touched real estate. You have other people that'll say you have to put your money into the stock market if you want to become wealthy. Well, there's a lot of wealthy people out there that have never touched the stock market. There are people that will say you have to start a business if you want to become wealthy. Well, there's a lot of very wealthy people out there that have never started a business before. And so what you got to understand is there's no one path to wealth. You have to find the right path to you. But when it comes to becoming wealthy on a general level, there's 3 things that you have to understand. You got to understand the outflow of cash, the inflow of cash, and the growing of cash. It doesn't matter which path you take, whether you're an employee, whether you're an employer, whether it's stocks, whether it's real estate, whether it's both. But you have to understand now, how do you stop the money from leaving, especially in the early stages, so you can grow this cash base. Then you got to understand how can you grow the cash base even faster by increasing how much money you're generating. And then you got to understand how can you actually grow this cash, putting this cash to work without your own labor. How can you go out and invest in passive assets? Maybe it's passively. Maybe you just set up a system where every week, every 2 weeks, money is automatically invested. Maybe you want to be more involved with your investments. And the advantage of you being more involved with your investments is you can get a better return, meaning you can grow your money even faster. But it comes with more risk, and it comes with more time, and it comes with more research. So you got to understand where on that spectrum that you are. Do you like reading financial statements? Do you like keeping up with companies? Do you like analyzing investments? Do you like understanding that risk? Or do you just not want to have to touch it and not have to worry about it? And you know that if you just keep hammering this money away slowly over the next number of decades, you will have this $1 million or multi-million-dollar nest egg that you can feed off of for the rest of your life, and maybe even pass it down to your kids and grandkids. You just got to figure out what the right plan is for you. And the people that are trying to sell you this concept of you have to do this one thing, well, generally those are the ones that are just trying to sell you a program. So I want you to understand that when it comes to building wealth, you just got to understand the cash outflow, the cash inflow, and how to grow the cash. And then when it comes to how do you grow your cash, well, you have a few different options. The three most time-tested are putting it into stocks, putting it into real estate, and putting it into businesses. Are there other options? Sure. I can't tell you what to do. I personally have some of my money going into startups. I personally have some of my money going into cryptocurrency. And I personally have some of my money going into physical gold. Now, I invest in gold because gold to me is like a protection against doomsday type of things. It's that insurance. So I own physical gold. It's not gold certificates or paper gold. It's physical gold. I invest in cryptocurrency because, well, I understand the value that cryptocurrency has to offer. I believe in the value of cryptocurrency, but I also understand that it's very risky and it could go down to zero tomorrow. And I also invest in startups because, well, I like working with entrepreneurs. And I'm also fortunate that I have a platform where I can help market some of the companies that I invest in. And so startup investing works for me, but startup investing is very risky. I know that the investments that I make, well, they could go down to zero tomorrow. And I will never see the money that I invest in startups until one of these companies either get bought out or maybe they go public. So there are risks associated to everything. And you just got to understand now, where are you ready to invest? What is the right option for you? And that's where financial education comes to play. And if you want more of the financial education, again, you can read the free ebook that my team at Briefs Media has to offer. And you can download that ebook down in the description for free. If you can keep investing $100 a month, which is less than $4 a day, from the day you turn 21 until the day you turn 66, you do that for 45 years. You never change how much money you invest, and you just get an average stock market return, which historically has been 10% a year. That doesn't mean you get 10% growth every year. It means on average, you grow by 10%.